Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for the MinuteMan Weather March 2021 pre-plant projection. I'm meteorologist Kaylee Carey. I'm a senior meteorologist here at MinuteMan Weather, and here's just a quick look at what we're going to be talking about today as we look deeper into what this upcoming season has for planting. Now, something that we focus on here at MinuteMan Weather is that it is all about change, and we are constantly looking at the change in models, change in upper air patterns, and change in the ENSO phase. And that's going to be the main thing we're talking about today, is because we are slowly transferring out of this very strong La Nina to a moderate La Nina, and slowly we're going to be seeing this ENSO phase shift to neutral. Why does that matter? Well, when we start to shift from a moderate La Nina into a neutral ENSO oscillation, it causes those weather patterns to shift drastically. So here's that temperature outlook that the National Weather Service has out for April, May, June. For the most part, we are agreeing with this, and this is what we are anticipating. The only change we could be looking at is that the eastern half of CONUS could be a little bit cooler for the second half of May than what we're seeing here. And that's primarily because the MJO has been very sluggish, but we're starting to see it move around a lot quicker. We're currently in phase 6, but we're projected to move from phase 7 rapidly into phase 5, and that typically indicates cooler air. So possibly cooler air for the second half of April than what we're seeing here. Now, when we look at that rainfall forecast, above average rainfall is anticipated for the same time frame up into the northeast. The only difference that we could be seeing with this is that above average rainfall could stretch down a little bit further south into Tennessee. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because this last week they were actually dealing with floods, and the river gauges are already at flood level or minor flood level. So I wouldn't be surprised to see more rainfall continue to make its way through that area just with the current weather pattern that we're seeing set up. Now, that below average rainfall we're looking out towards the west, that is no surprise, and we are anticipating that to stay around through most of the summer months as well. Now let's look deeper into the summer months, July, August, September. Now this is where things are going to start to get a little shaky. We're running into that spring forecasting barrier, and with La Nina starting to shift into ENSO, there are a lot of questions. Are we going to go into El Nino, back into a weak La Nina? So this time period, this time frame, there's a lot of uncertainty moving forward, but I think something that most forecasters are agreeing on is that above average temperatures are definitely in the books throughout most of the summer months. Precipitation is where it gets a little bit more iffy, and this is a little bit harder to call. Now, National Weather Service is forecasting above average rainfall for the East Coast. We are seeing that the only change that we could see here is that rainfall could stretch a little bit further west, and that's just because we're anticipating an active hurricane season, and sometimes those hurricanes have the potential to hit more of that Texas, Louisiana coast and have the potential to bring up more rain as well. Something though that we are going to be focusing on throughout these summer months, and I think it's going to be something that we have to continually monitor and bring up, is that below average rainfall dipping in to the center portion of the country. And that's because that region is already well behind on rainfall. Soil moisture is low. So watching that below average rainfall make its way into the forecast has the potential to be troublesome for some crops in that region as well. The current U.S. drought monitor. Now, believe it or not, this actually looks a little bit better than what was put out last month. One region we are going to be focusing on is that western and northern portion of Iowa. You can see there's still a little bit of red there indicating extreme drought. Now, that region does have the potential to grow a little bit stronger, meaning that the drought could increase, drought-like conditions could increase before it gets better. So that is going to be an area we are going to have to look out for, as well as the Dakotas. We're seeing exceptional drought to extreme drought in that region as well, and even on into severe drought, which is a little bit better, but we aren't seeing a lot of relief making its way to that region as we head deeper into the summer months. And obviously the desert Southwest and South Texas well behind on rainfall. Soil moisture is below average in those regions, and a lot of that area is also experiencing extreme drought. So we're going to have to be looking at Texas and the desert Southwest moving forward. Now, what we're looking at here is the drought tendency forecast, which is basically a way to look at what we could be looking at over the next 30 days. Is the U.S. Drought Monitor going to continue drought in this area, or is it going to intensify or have the potential to remove? So The green color indicates that we could be seeing the removal of drought in this region, which would be very welcomed, especially up in the northwestern portion of Iowa. But it is worth pointing out that Texas, that drought intensification is likely, and this has the potential to create some problems for cotton in that region as well. And drought intensification has the possibility to make its way into California and southern Arizona. But moving forward, what we're going to be looking at, this is the long-range European model, which if you're living on the East Coast or you have crops over on the east side, we're going to be looking at well above average rainfall heading into May, June, and July, as well as July, August, and September. Areas worth monitoring, once again, are going to be the central portion of the country, and that kind of coincides where we are with this La Nina and transition into the Enso phase. So there is confidence in the European model for May, June, and July, but once we start to head deeper to July, August, September, something that we're going to have to look at is we're going to look at this, I guess you could say, take it with a grain of salt, because as these seasons start to transition into that Enso phase, dependent upon if we go back into a weak La Nina, or even there's a slim possibility we can even see an El Nino make its way in. But most models are forecasting a weak La Nina. But once again, that July, August, September is going to be one to watch. But something that everything is agreeing on is that rainfall is going to continue on the eastern side. Desert Southwest will still be questionable if that rain makes its way through, like that European model is calling for. Now, this is actually, when you look at the soil moisture outlook, end of April, it looks a little scary, especially if you're in California or Texas. But the good news is as we start to head in towards the end of June, we can see that soil moisture starts to replenish back in certain areas of Texas and doesn't look as rough over in California. And it is worth pointing out, though, that above average soil moisture that they're dealing with in the east is anticipated or forecasted, you could say, to kind of return to a little bit more of a normalcy as we head deeper into the summer months. And that is anticipating the potential for rainfall rates to kind of slow down as we head into summer, which is very normal for this time of year. Now, current soil moisture percentile, you can see that Texas, the region where cotton's grown, that in the panhandle, that is something that we're going to be keeping a close eye on, especially as we head into those deeper summer months. And the Dakotas are struggling. You can even see that it is well behind the soil moisture in Illinois up into Indiana as well. And once again, a region we continue to talk about and mention is the northwestern portion of Iowa and even northern Iowa. Those areas are definitely going to be needing more rain in order to get those soil moistures up to adequate levels as we head into the planting season. Speaking of planting season, let's dive into each crop and what we're looking at as we head deeper into the summer months. So let's start off with corn. Now, all in all, much of the Ohio River Valley is near average for soil moisture. The plains and the upper Midwest range from abnormally dry to severe drought. But what we're looking at is this strong La Nina pattern that we have been seeing, or that has been in place the last few months, has been particularly harsh, especially across the main growing regions for corn, including Iowa and Illinois. And according to the USDA, currently nearly 20% of corn production is within an area experiencing drought. So once again, that area does have that percentage has the possibility to grow before it starts to shrink down, because we are anticipating relief as this early spring La Nina continues to weaken. More rain will be possible for this region, but corn will need to be monitored. Now let's move on, taking a closer look at soybeans, and those kind of coincide with corn within the same growing region. We're looking at the western Iowa and parts of Illinois, same regions that are struggling for corn with soil moisture are going to be struggling with soybeans. And that's going to be, once again, the northern portion, western Iowa, and then that one strip through Illinois experiencing those drought-like conditions. And currently, according to the USDA, only 18%, I say only 18% just because it's lower than 20% of corn, but 18% of soybean production is within an area experiencing drought. And once again, same regions that we were just talking about. Much of the lower Midwest and Ohio Valley remains near average for soil moisture, and this will be very beneficial for soybeans as we head into the planting season. And then some portions of the lower Mississippi Valley are currently excessively wet, but over the next few months, relatively drier conditions could have the potential to be observed, and that will be helpful to soybeans in that region. Moving forward, let's talk about Kansas City hard winter wheat. And this is one that we're definitely going to be talking about, I think, through much of the season, because dryness lingering across most of the western United States from the summer months, we know that it made planting winter wheat difficult. And then through much of the planting phase, those warm and dry conditions continue through many of the growing regions, including Kansas. And according to the USDA, 24% of winter wheat production is within an area experiencing drought. Now, as Enzo is starting to shift more into that La Nina phase, late autumn into winter, we saw those conditions worsen for the region, and much needed moisture for that region was scarce. So with La Nina starting to forecasting to slowly transition to that more neutral phase of Enzo through late spring into early summer, there could be some relief for the region, but with more precipitation possible. But this definitely will be a crop to watch just due to the drought-like conditions and low soil moisture across the area. Now, let's talk about soft red wheat, a little bit different conditions than what Kansas City hard winter wheat has been dealing with. So an active tropical cyclone season and strong La Nina late autumn into winter assisted in keeping the soil moisture elevated across portions of the lower Mississippi Valley and Ohio valleys. And this pattern was very beneficial to winter wheat in the area, keeping ground moisture to near or above average for almost the entire region. Most winter wheat growing areas are reporting the majority of a crop in fair to good conditions, while the months of December and January have been dry for much of the growing areas. Limited snowfall, slightly warmer temperatures have raised some concerns for winter wheat conditions across portions of Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois. But overall, wheat is anticipated to do very, very well in this region. Moving forward, let's talk about some white wheat. So what we're going to be looking at here is that much of the growing area observed average to just below average precipitation. And we were seeing a lot of that region in areas of moderate drought, but we started to see rain chances increase, and rain chances are forecasted to stay in that region throughout the next 3 months or so, and that is going to help with soil moisture recovery, and we are anticipating conditions to start to come back up to adequate levels. So all in all, no concerns noted for white wheat at this time. And let's take a closer look at spring wheat. Now, it's a little bit different story. We're looking at spring wheat will need to be monitored this season and you can see that number there. It's a high number. 78% of the production area is experiencing drought-like conditions according to the USDA. And much of the growing areas across Alberta and western Saskatchewan have seen ample precipitation over the last few months, but that's in contrast to portions of southeastern Saskatchewan and southern Manitoba observing moderate to severe drought. And that drought that they're seeing in southern Manitoba, that's what is carrying southward into the Dakotas and Montana, where much of the region is experiencing a slight to moderate drought. So we are anticipating rain chances to possibly increase over the next couple months or so, but all in all, this crop will need to be monitored moving forward. Let's take a deeper look at cotton. So cotton's another crop we're going to be having to really watch and monitor, and that's primarily because of what Texas is dealing with. Drought-like conditions are currently in place, and precipitation is below average, and that coincides with low soil moisture, and that's not uncommon for La Nina or even Texas for the most part. But what we're looking at as we head into the next couple months is the potential for that drought to intensify. So Texas will need to be monitored, especially for cotton and the amount of precipitation they receive. The good news though with cotton is that east of Louisiana and Arkansas, they're anticipating a surplus of ground moisture, which is almost, it's completely opposite of what we're looking at in Texas. So cotton will need to be monitored for dryness and the potential for a surplus of moisture on the eastern side moving forward. And that's all we have for you today. If you want to talk any more about each crop or go into more details about what we're looking at, we would love to hear from you. We love talking weather. Please feel free to reach out, and thanks for joining.